in our project, it's basically it focused on biodiversity and ecological processes to better understand the emerging risks that are related to viral pathogens mostly. And we, next slide, please. We studied different groups of organisms like mammals, birds, mosquitoes, which were in the focus, but also beetles and different viruses. And the research questions were first focused on interspecific interactions within the ecosystems, such as competition or predator-prey relations. Then we asked about the dilution effect, but you could also say that the concentration effect when you're losing biodiversity, whether that results in a greater risk for transmission. We also studied insect virus diversity, which is, of course, linked with transmission risks and climatic conditions at different scales. So we worked at local scales, regional scales, continental, but also at global scales with different kinds of methods. So, and finally, we were also interested to more or less trace and quantify uncertainty in these processes. Next slide, please. So we worked with experiments, but also observational studies. We did modeling, like joint species distribution modeling, and we studied not only the drivers, but also the processes that are going on then. We studied the literature, we did reviews, we also did fieldwork, and of course all that cannot be condensed within 5 minutes, but it couldn't also hardly be condensed within 3 years, because we had such a diversity not only of organisms and ecosystems that we were looking at, but also at different methods. So we did also laboratory studies at Bernhard Nocht Institute, for instance, on vector competence for different viruses and different mosquitoes. And finally, we also studied global patterns to identify gaps in knowledge about all these processes. So where were studies done, and also where we have no knowledge about what's going on until now, because there is no local studies. We also did species distribution models for all mosquito species within Europe. That's not yet published, but will be published soon. Next slide, please. So we did describing and monitoring, finding even new records for mosquitoes, like in Yucatan Island in Mexico. We did natural field infections and laboratory experiments showing that Culex species can be naturally infected and transmit 4 flaviviruses. So like also investigating the host choice of viruses and insects. And there we find for one group, for one genus, no big preference, like for the Culex species. And then for other genera, we find quite different patterns. So there is a difference in the groups of organisms, even within mosquitoes, that needs to be considered. We also did experiments about how predators can control, like water beetles in water bodies could control Aedes albopictus as one of the main invasive species in Europe that is transmitting pathogens to humans. And finally, we did a series of modeling activities, very different kinds of models, so process-based models, correlative models, joint species distribution models. And in these modelings, we found that, for instance, in Aedes aegypti, as you can see here, there is no clear correlation between temperature and precipitation in all over the years. And for other species within the genus Aedes, there are clear correlations. So we need to consider the climatic and weather conditions, the different species, the different genera, the host relationships of these mosquitoes. So it's a broad spectrum of biodiversity that needs to be considered to improve our knowledge on the emerging risks which are related to vectors and pathogens which cause problems then in human health. So finally, the last slide. We did also training and outreach quite a lot. So we had a workshop for PhD. We had candidates. We had several PhD candidates making their PhD within the project, but also we have included bachelor and master thesis. And not only that, we even installed a new master program, a new international master program on environment, climate change, and health in our university in Bayreuth during this project, which is trying to integrate medical perspectives and ecological perspectives for One Health. We also had some interactions with policymakers, journalists, outreach blogs, and we also did a symposium on why is biodiversity important for One Health. Thank you very much.